I drive long-haul freight between Oregon and Arizona, so I'm used to long, quiet stretches of empty road. Most of the time I like it. The rhythm, the isolation, the night. But every now and then something happens that makes you rethink how alone you really are out there. This happened last October on a return run northbound through Nevada. I had left Kingman late, around 8 p.m., after grabbing a quick dinner at a truck stop. I figured I'd drive overnight to beat the traffic and pull off to rest near Reno in the morning. This route is second nature to me, Highway 93 up to Ely, then cut west on 50. I've done it maybe 50 times. I could probably draw every exit from memory. So when I passed what looked like a new green sign that said Exit 47, Hollow Creek, I did a double take. I slowed down. Exit 47? Hollow Creek? I'd never seen that before. And the weird part is, there's nothing out there for miles in that stretch. No towns, no turnoffs, nothing but desert. It's flat open land for at least 20 miles on either side. I even checked my GPS. It didn't show any exit there. Just blank highway. I probably should have kept going. But curiosity's a strange thing when you're running on caffeine and highway hypnosis. I figured maybe it was a new development, a rest area, or a shortcut the GPS hadn't picked up yet. So I slowed down and veered off the exit. The ramp curved down into darkness. No lights, no signs. Just a narrow, two-lane road cutting through sagebrush and dust. My headlights barely lit more than 20 feet ahead, but I kept going for a few miles. It was dead silent. I rolled down my window to listen, not even the sound of wind. About 5 miles in, I started to feel off. Like I was driving into a place I wasn't supposed to find. The road was cracked and faded, like it hadn't been maintained in years, even though that exit sign looked brand new. Every few hundred yards, I passed what looked like the remnants of wooden fence posts, some leaning, some broken, others just stubs sticking out of the ground. Eventually, I passed a rusted-out billboard that said, "Welcome to Hollow Creek." Below it, in hand-painted letters, was written, "Population 19. Please drive slow." No lights ahead. No houses. No signs of life. I was about to turn around when I noticed something in the road up ahead, what looked like a small figure walking. My brights caught it for just a second. A kid, maybe 10 years old, barefoot, wearing a dirty gray hoodie. He didn't even flinch when my truck rumbled closer. Just walked slowly, head down, like he didn't even know I was there. I slowed to a crawl and leaned out the window. "Hey, you all right? You need help?" The kid stopped, then turned his head slightly, not all the way. Just enough that I could see the side of his face. Something about it made my chest tighten. He didn't answer, just stared, like he was listening for something. Then he raised one arm and pointed behind me back the way I came. And without saying a word, he stepped off the road and vanished into the brush. I didn't wait around. I threw the truck into reverse, then turned it around as fast as I could and got the hell out of there. It felt like my wheels were dragging through wet sand, even though the road was bone dry. But here's the part that's been messing with me. As I drove back toward the highway, I passed that Welcome to Hollow Creek sign again, but this time, the population number had changed. It now read, Population 20. I didn't stop to get a closer look. I floored it back up the ramp, expecting to see the freeway lights. But when I reached the top, the ramp just ended. I don't mean it merged with the highway. I mean it just ended. Like the asphalt had been sawed off clean. I slammed on the brakes just in time. My truck skidded to a stop on gravel, headlights shining into empty desert. There was no freeway in front of me. No cars. No lights. Just open scrubland in every direction. My heart was pounding. I reversed, found the nearest spot I could turn around again, and headed back the way I came. Everything looked different now. The air felt heavier, and the night was dead quiet. I kept checking my phone, but it was stuck. No signal, no map, just a blank screen. I drove what felt like an hour before I saw the exit ramp again. But this time, there was no sign. No, Exit 47. No, Hollow Creek. Just a dirt path leading back up to the highway. When I finally got back on the road, my GPS blinked to life. It said I was at mile marker 31. That made no sense. I should have only been a few minutes off course. But the clock said it was almost 2 a.m. I'd lost nearly 4 hours. The rest of the trip was uneventful. I got to Reno by late morning, pulled into a rest stop, and tried to sleep, but I kept hearing the sound of gravel under bare feet in my dreams. A few days later, I was still unsettled enough to do some digging. I searched every Nevada record I could find. Checked Google Maps, satellite views, old town registries. There's no Hollow Creek, Nevada. Never was. But I did find a blurry forum post from 2009 on a now-defunct site for ghost towns and abandoned places. Someone had uploaded a photo of the same billboard I saw, and a single comment underneath read, "Whatever you do, don't stop if you see that exit. It doesn't want you to leave twice." Story 2. I used to have this delivery job back in college, mostly evenings and nights. I drove an old silver Civic, no GPS, just printed directions and my gut. Most of the routes were in rural areas outside of town, those long winding roads with no streetlights and barely any cell signal. You could go 10 miles without seeing another car out there. One night, I had a late run, last delivery of the shift, maybe around 12:30 a.m. I was driving through this really isolated stretch of road bordered by thick woods on both sides. I just dropped off a package at a farmhouse about 15 minutes back. No traffic, no houses, no moon, just darkness and that constant hum of tires on asphalt. I remember I was halfway through this wooded section when I noticed headlights appear in my rearview mirror. No big deal. I figured someone else was headed through. But then they got closer, real fast, like they were speeding up just to get on my bumper. And then the high beams came on. At first, I thought they were just trying to see better on the dark road. But then they didn't let up. Even on the straight stretches, even when I slowed down, even when I lightly tapped my brakes as a hint, they kept the brights right on me. It was blinding. I couldn't see anything in my mirrors. The inside of my car lit up like a stage. I tried changing lanes even though it was a single lane road just to give them room to pass, but they didn't. They matched every move I made. I even pulled slightly off to the shoulder a couple times, thinking maybe they were in some kind of emergency, but they didn't pass. Just rode my tail with the high beams locked on. I started to feel this buzzing anxiety in my gut. I told myself it was probably just some asshole messing around. People do weird things late at night, especially if they're drunk or bored. Still, I was ready to be done with it. I figured if I could just make it to the main road, there'd be a gas station or something, somewhere with people around. That's when I realized I'd taken a wrong turn. My stomach dropped as I double-checked the directions. I should have taken that left a few miles back. Instead, I'd gone deeper into the woods. This wasn't just rural, it was isolated. No street names, no houses, just tall trees and narrow curves. And that car behind me, still there, still blinding. I started speeding up, more out of nerves than logic. But they matched me. Every curve, every hill. They were glued to my bumper, still with the brights on, still not honking or passing. Just there. Then I noticed something else. My rearview mirror caught a flash of movement. Not from the car behind me, but inside mine. In the back seat. At first, I thought it was just the reflection of the high beams bouncing off something, but it happened again. A shape, a silhouette, like someone shifting in the back seat. I damn near drove off the road. My heart started hammering so hard I thought I'd pass out. I didn't want to look back. I couldn't. I just kept driving. But everything in me was screaming that someone was in the car with me. That's when the car behind me started honking. Over and over. Blasting the horn like crazy. Flashing the lights, swerving a little. I thought, are they trying to run me off the road? Or warn me? In a total panic, I slammed the brakes and veered off to the shoulder, nearly hitting a ditch. The car behind me screeched to a stop, and a man jumped out with a flashlight. I fumbled with my seatbelt, jumped out, and nearly tackled him screaming, "What the hell do you want?" He didn't answer right away. He just pointed at my car. "There's someone in your back seat," he said, totally out of breath. "I saw him climb in when you were parked at that farmhouse." My knees buckled. I felt sick. I backed away from the car, and we both stood there, staring at it like it might explode. The man, this random guy in the SUV, slowly opened my back door with the flashlight raised. Empty. Nothing there. We both just stood there, breathing heavy. He swore he saw someone crawl in through the passenger side when I was dropping off the package. He'd been parked nearby, picking up his girlfriend who lived down the road, and noticed someone slip into my car from the shadows. He followed me, trying to figure out what to do. He didn't want to call the cops and cause a scene if it turned out he was wrong. He said he thought maybe I knew the guy at first, until I kept driving without reacting. But here's the part that still keeps me up at night. When I finally looked in the back seat myself, the floor mat was wet. Muddy, like someone had been sitting there with dirty boots. And one of the rear seat belts was buckled, like someone had put it on and then taken it off in a hurry. I never saw anyone get out. Neither did the guy in the SUV. We searched the woods for a bit, called the cops, and filed a report, but nothing ever came of it. They didn't find anyone. Just footprints leading off the road and into the forest, too scattered and light to track. I never used that delivery route again. I never even drove through that part of town after dark. I kept thinking, how long was he planning to stay in my car? What was he waiting for? What would have happened if that guy hadn't followed me? Sometimes I wake up in the middle of the night, thinking I hear that seatbelt clicking shut again. Story 3. It was around 2:30 in the morning when I hit that stretch of road. I was driving back from my cousin's wedding, way out in rural Iowa, trying to make it to a cheap motel I'd booked 2 towns over. I was by myself. Everyone else stayed the night, but I had work in the morning and figured I'd save a few bucks by crashing somewhere cheaper down the highway. Dumb idea in hindsight. I was maybe an hour into the drive when I noticed the fog starting to roll in. It wasn't the normal kind either. It was thick, milky, and low to the ground like smoke from a fire. It clung to the edges of the road and crept across the asphalt like it had a mind of its own. My headlights cut through it, but not much. The world beyond the beams just vanished into white. There were no streetlights out there. No houses. Just empty fields and a two-lane road that twisted and curved through miles of nowhere. I slowed down, rolled down my window a crack just to stay alert, and kept going. I hadn't seen another car in almost 40 minutes. About 10 miles into that fog, I saw him. At first, it looked like just a shadow. A tall, upright figure in the middle of the road, maybe 100 yards ahead, standing still. I tapped the brakes. The closer I got, the clearer it became. It was a man. He wasn't waving, not trying to flag me down. Just standing there in the middle of the lane, facing my car, perfectly still. He looked like he was wearing a dark coat, maybe a hoodie or a long jacket. I couldn't see his face, just the silhouette. I slowed to a crawl, about 15 feet away, trying to process what I was looking at. I didn't want to swerve and end up in a ditch, but I also wasn't about to just drive straight towards someone like that. So I stopped. My car idled into silence. I waited. He didn't move, didn't flinch. I flashed my brights once, thinking maybe he was confused or disoriented, maybe drunk. Nothing. No reaction. I cracked the window a little more. "You okay, man?" I called out. My voice sounded strange in the fog, like it got swallowed up before it could go far. Still nothing. I considered getting out, just for a second. But something about the way he stood there, the stillness of it, sent this crawling sensation through my chest. Like every instinct I had was telling me do not open that door. Then, slowly, he tilted his head. Just a few degrees. Like a curious dog. Still silent, still motionless otherwise. That tiny movement was somehow worse than if he'd lunged at me. I don't know how to explain it. It didn't feel right. Like it wasn't something he was doing to communicate. It was something else entirely. I slammed the car into reverse, rolled back about 30 feet, and started to go around him, veering carefully onto the gravel shoulder. My tires crunched the dirt, the car jostling slightly as I passed. I kept my eyes on him the whole time, half expecting him to run at me or start shouting. He didn't. He just slowly turned to face the car as I drove past, pivoting at the waist like he was mounted on something. I couldn't see his face, just darkness under the hood, but I felt him watching me. Like his stare was drilling into my neck through the glass. I got back onto the road and pushed the gas. Didn't look back. My heart was hammering. I kept glancing in the mirror, but there was only fog behind me. Maybe 5 minutes later, I came to a T-junction. No signs. I had GPS on, but of course, this was one of those dead zones, no service. I guessed and turned right. That's when I passed him again. Same guy. Same coat. Just standing there at the edge of the road, about 10 feet from my car. This time he was off to the side, half hidden in the mist, but unmistakable. Same height. Same posture. I didn't stop. I didn't even slow down. I kept driving, blood pounding in my ears. It had to be a coincidence. Someone else. Maybe a prank. But I knew in my gut it wasn't. 10 minutes later, another turn, another wrong guess. The fog was worse now, thick enough that I could barely see the road ahead. And then again he was there. Closer this time. Dead center of the road once more, maybe 20 feet ahead. This time, I didn't stop. I swerved hard onto the opposite lane and floored it. As I passed, I caught a better glimpse, not of his face, exactly, but of what was under the hood. There was nothing there. No skin, no eyes. Just black. Like the space under his hood was hollow, or deeper than it should have been. It looked like a hole in the world. I didn't look back. I drove for what felt like an hour until I finally saw a gas station off the side of the road. A lone building, flickering lights, one rusted-out pickup truck parked by the pump. I pulled in, got out, and nearly collapsed from the adrenaline. Inside, there was an old guy behind the counter. He looked up, gave me a half nod, then said, "You all right?" I must have looked pale as hell. I nodded, trying to catch my breath, and asked him the first thing that came to mind. "Is there anyone else out on that road tonight?" I saw someone, a guy in a coat. The cashier stared at me for a long second. Then he said, very slowly, "Where'd you see him?" "Middle of the road. A few miles back. Just standing there." He nodded once, like he knew exactly what I meant. "You keep driving," he said. "Don't stop for anyone out there. Even if they look hurt. Even if they're in the middle of the damn road. You understand?" I nodded, barely able to speak. "Who is he?" He didn't answer right away. Just looked out the window toward the fog. Finally, he said, "Some folks say it's just a man who died out there years ago. Hit by a car. Never left. Others say it ain't ever been human. Just wears a human shape." Then he added, "But whatever it is, it don't like when people stop." I left not long after that. Drove until the sun came up. Never saw him again. But here's the part I've never told anyone. A few days later, I washed the car, trying to move on, forget the whole thing. As I was cleaning the passenger side window, I noticed something just above the glass handle. A smudge, almost like a handprint. But it was too high up, and there were too many fingers.